Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Sunday morning. Happy Sunday, beautiful people. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you as we gather together to remember and celebrate the magnificence and significance of God working in us, through us, and as us. Let us begin, as we always do, with prayer. And so I invite you right here and right now to just center yourself by taking a breath. Take a breath in and breathe out. And again, we breathe in and we breathe out. And let's affirm together, peace to my mind,
peace to my mind,
peace to my heart,
peace to my heart,
peace to my life,
peace to my life,
peace to my mind,
peace to my mind,
peace to my heart,
peace to my heart,
peace to my life.
peace to my life.
There is one mind, one power, one presence that is working in all, through all, and as all. There is one life, and that life is our life now. It is the life of every blade of grass. It is the life of every insect. It is the life of every sun, every star, every cloud, every body of water. It is the life of every human and every animal. It is the life of all, operating in, through, and as all. For God is omnipresence. God is everywhere at all times and constantly encountered, present as you, present as me, present as all living things, and present within our hearts and our minds. As I recognize the truth that God is, and God is right here, right now, I know that God neither comes nor goes. I know that God is always available through our recognition of the presence. And so as we recognize the presence, we also recognize our presence. For we live, move, and have our being in God. The truth is we are one with God and one of God. The truth is that this intimate and intricate connection can never be severed or broken for any reason in any way. The truth is God is always with us and within us. And so as I recognize this oneness, I know that we have great power. As I recognize this oneness, I know that we have great possibility. And it is out of that awareness of the power, it is out of that awareness of the great possibility that I speak this word in faith. That this time and this gathering that we call the weekend service at Celebration Spiritual Center is blessed. It is blessed beyond compare. It is blessed and a blessing. It is prosperous and prospering. Right here and right now, I declare and decree and know that each and every one of us will receive something today that will impact our lives. Each and every one of us will receive something today that will empower our lives. Each and every one of us will receive something today that will support us in thinking differently and seeing differently and in thinking in right ways and productive ways and constructive ways. It will support us in releasing those things that need to be released. It will support us in letting go of those things that need to be let go of. It will support us in leaning in new and more dynamic ways into the truth that we are worthy, that we are loved unconditionally, that God does not condemn us, but is always cheering us on. We will lean in new ways in the reality that we are victorious and made and created to thrive and be great on this earth. I am so grateful and thankful for all the souls that are gathered here now, that through our collective minds and collective intentions are co-creating this service and this moment. It is good, it is good, it is good. And out of that awareness that it is good, I now release this prayer. I release this prayer back into the law, which is always in operation, always responding to us, to the feeling tone and vibration of that which we have said shall be so. And so it is with great joy and thanksgiving that I simply release this prayer. And we say, amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is.
And so it is, and so it must be. Yes, yes. Well, good morning again, and happy Sunday, beautiful people. It is wonderful, wonderful and good to be here with all of you as we gather together in celebration, as we gather together intentionally and affirmatively. For those of you who may be joining us for the very first time, we want to especially say hello and welcome to each and every one of you. We are grateful that you found us. We are grateful that you chose to hang out with us on this Sunday or whatever time you happen to be watching this stream. And we are confident that you will receive something today that will support you in living in an empowered way, that you will receive something today that will support you in living more confidently in your life and remembering and recognizing that you are loved, that you are worthy, and that you are powerful beyond measure, because the power that is God is operating in, through, and as you. As a first-time guest, we would love to stay in touch with you, and it's very easy to access our digital connection card. You see the information on the screen. Just text the word welcome to 347-472-1078. When you text that number, you'll receive a link to our digital connection card. Click the link, enter the information, and submit it. Once you've successfully submitted the information, you'll receive a follow-up text that says you're all set. And indeed, at that point, you are all set. You'll be on our mailing list. We send out an email that goes out on Fridays, and general correspondence here and there as necessary. So this will keep you up to date with what's happening at CSC. It will also be a good reference, because we're going to go into the announcements in a second, and it'll be a good reference for you as there are things in the announcements that you may want to have those links or some of the other information that we share. You'll have easy access in your inbox. So with that, I think it's a good time to get into our announcements so that we can move forward with the meditation and move forward with class. Oh, hang on one second. Let me see. All right. Okay, we're good now. So first things first is our Momentum Prayer Call. Happens every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a wonderful time to gather together in prayer, to start your daily spiritual practice for the day. It's also a wonderful way to continue the momentum that we create on Sunday and stay in the vibration of knowing what is true and speaking the truth and living intentionally and living affirmatively. It is also a wonderful way to get that jump start if you need it after whatever may have taken place on Monday or Tuesday, to tap back into this vibration and remember what is true. You see the information here on your screen. The phone number and the access code is there. There is also a playback number because we record each prayer. So the most recent prayer is always available via that playback number and the same access code. For those that are on our mailing list, you also know that you'll receive a link to that prayer under the prayer support section in the weekly email. So that may be a reason you want to join the mailing list and make sure that you have that information. If you have a prayer request, you can send an email to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. That email is received by our prayer champions, as well as PY and myself, and we will hold each and every one of you in prayer, or your loved ones, whomever you may be sending a prayer request on behalf of. We will hold you in the light of love. We will hold you in the light of truth and speak affirmatively with you. What we also know to be true is that as you're sending a prayer request, it's an act of releasing. And we recognize that we actually have to release and cast that burden so that we can make room to hear what God is seeking to be or do or express in, through, and as you. It makes room for an inspired idea. It makes room for a God idea. And so this is one of the reasons why it's a good thing to actually reach out and send in a prayer request. I'm reminded of the sermon from earlier this year, more than I can bear. And the truth of life is that there are some things that we can't bear, but that's why we have each other, right? That old adage of God never put more on you than you can bear, which suggests that you're supposed to be able to bear it. It's like, no. What if it is too much? But that's why we have each other. So as you reach out, you're actually casting the burden not on our shoulders, but really on the mind of God and on the mind of truth, and it's a powerful thing. Our summer designs are in the shop, and today is the last day to get 20% off this month. So we encourage you, if you haven't gone to the store, that's 20% off of everything, not just the new designs. And of course, the summer designs will only be available through the end of August. Every third Sunday, we gather together for what we call the God Talk. What is the God Talk? It is your opportunity not just to talk about God, but to actually ask questions. What we know to be true is that as you come to new thought, as you come to metaphysics, as you come to this way of thinking, this spirituality, this philosophy, you may have a number of things to unlearn. You may hear something that we say that sounds good, but it also brings up a bunch of questions. Or you may be in the experience of applying some of these principles, but not having the results that you thought you would have. And so PY and I are here to support you in learning to apply these principles to the realities of your life, and also being open and available for questions like this. This is a free forum. It's an open forum. No question is off limits, but you have to be in the room. So, of course, as we are gathering virtually, the God Talk is also virtual. It happens via Zoom. And so you have to be on our mailing list in order to get that link and password to join us for the God Talk. So for those of you who are first-time guests, again, this may be a reason that you want to join the mailing list, because you may want to join us for the God Talk on the 21st. As always, each year we will be closed at the end of the summer for rest and rejuvenation. We think this is a wonderful time for all of us to be intentional about our rest and rejuvenation as we move into the sort of unofficial end of summer, which takes us into Labor Day weekend. So the Sunday, August 28th and Sunday, September 4th, we will be closed. We will not be having service. I mean, as you all know, PY and I will be on our annual pastor's retreat, which is pastoral rest and rejuvenation. We're not going to be studying or learning or meeting or conferencing. We're going to be resting and rejuvenating. And so I think it's very important for us as pastors to model that and remind each and every one of you also to rest. And so if you hadn't thought about taking time off or taking one last vacation or trip or something at the end of the summer, let this be your prompt. As we always say, do as we do, not as we say. And so we're happy to support you in remembering to take time and rest and rejuvenate. That completes our announcements for this week. And so we get to move into the meditation experience, which will be led, as always, by PY.
Yes, it is a new month, a new opportunity to affirm some truth. I'm going to paraphrase A Course in Miracles. It says that we need to be reminded of the truth quite frequently because we're apt to forget. We're apt to forget some really important things about ourselves, some things that the mind of God has never forgotten. For example, I am as God created me, or I am lovable. Because you know the biggest and the most amazing idea coming from the mind of God? You. That idea was perfectly formed. It was enough. It was so inspiring that it came forth in physical form. You. And so this month, we're going to remember a very important affirmative thought. I am enough. I am enough just as I am. I don't have to do more. I don't have to provide more. I don't have to know more. I am enough. It's Three simple words that we're apt to forget. This loving idea came perfect, whole, and complete. It was lacking nothing. Can it experience more? Yes. But does it need to be more? No. Does it need to do more? No. You are a brilliant idea from an eternally, infinitely intelligent mind. I am enough. Let's take that idea this month into our meditation experience where we do more than just memorize text. We get to experience God and these truths about ourselves, for ourselves. So go ahead and let's prepare for this experience, this inward journey, this connection, this remembering. Look around the room. Notice that you are safe, seated upright in a chair, on your bed, on your sofa, in your hotel room, wherever you may be. Align your ears over your shoulders, shoulders over hips, not leaning too far forward or too far backwards. Plant the palms on the tops of the thighs, tapping in to that physical sensation. Closing the eyes now. Let's move back to the center. The center where the truth of our being is flowing. Let's just notice ourselves from the inside, completely aware that we are enough. And just as the breath keeps flowing, it never questions its ability to do and be what it is. It just flows. Let us model ourselves as we witness the breath. We judge it as not too deep or too shallow. We just know that the breath is enough. Each round we give permission to relax us more. And now, let's take conscious control of the breath. We've decided to use it for our relaxation and our connection. Send your thoughts, your awareness into the low belly. Together, let's inhale, expand the low belly on a count of 4. Inhale. Hold it there, count to 4. Open the mouth, relax the jaw, sigh it out. Count to 4. Feels good to breathe into the low belly, so let's do that again. Into the low belly, expanding the low belly. Hold it there. And release it, making room. Sigh it out. Into the low belly now, up through the rib cage, connecting low belly to midsection, expanding, holding. And releasing. Navel draws in towards the spine on that release, and then we expand, making more room. Inhale, expand. Hold it there. And without collapsing, sigh it out. In through the low belly, up through the rib cage. As we expand the sides and the front and the back, send that breath all the way up to the heart chakra. Hold it there. Release it all. Sigh it out. Again, in and all the way up, across the chest, across the back. Fill up with this knowingness. Hold it there. Now sigh it out. And as we sigh it out, we notice the sound of breath in our ears. And we feel the awareness of God right where we are. For we are enough. Let's practice a few rounds of deep breathing now, bringing that inhale all the way in and up. Pausing at the heart. And this time, exhaling through the nose. Lips are closed. This will be our form of breathing, breath work. In and out through the nose, each round taking us deeper, each round allowing us to relax more, each round reminding us that we are enough. Each round we give permission for ourselves to be enough. Let's practice. Breathing, accepting, remembering. Beautiful, everyone. Let's take that energy of being enough into the feet and notice our feet right where they are. Maybe we wiggle the toes or raise the heels, but we release the burden that we've carried all week. If our minds thought that we were ever not enough, relax the feet and remember that you are. Sending that energy up through the soles of the feet, across the ankles. Relax the ankles. Energy flows across the shins and the calves. We notice. We remember. We relax the shins and the calves. Energy wants to continually flow, and so we give it permission to flow across the knees. Relax the knees. Energy flows across the thighs and the hamstrings and the glutes. Go ahead. Relax the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes. Surrendering to our affirmative thought. I am enough. Just as I am, right where I am. I am enough. The energy flows from the base of our spine and makes its ascension up. And as it does, it activates our subtle body, our energy fields. We allow them to open and balance. Breathing in, exhaling, and allowing. As the energy flows up, 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 and out the crown of our head. completely open to receive more thoughts that mirror I am enough. Completely open to be the idea of goodness. Completely open. And from this place of receptivity, we allow it to flow back down through the crown, across the third eye, down the throat, across the shoulders, down the arms, and out the fingertips. And from this place of openness, notice if there's anywhere that it doesn't feel as open, that it doesn't feel available to our affirmative thought. Send the breath and love and gentleness there. Turn the palms up to receive or turn the palms down to ground. You decide. As we prepare for our silent time, know that I will monitor the time. You just take the inward journey. And if the mind wanders, it is okay. It is doing what the mind does. And we can decide to bring it back to this important thought. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. Experience the enoughness that you are now. With our eyes still closed, we remember that the love we give is enough. With our eyes still closed, we remember that my gift, skills, and talents are enough. And with our eyes still closed, we enjoy feeling enough from the inside. Let us bring this thought with us this month, this week, today. As we look outside the world, may show us things. We compare ourselves not. We just remember that we are enough. Let's slowly begin to return, filled up from the inside, remembering what is true. Start to wake your body now, nice and easy. Maybe wiggle the fingers and the toes. If the palms are turned up, turn them back down. And inhale, draw the shoulders up by the ears, elongating. Exhale, releasing the breath as the shoulders draw back and down. Inhale up. Exhale, release, shoulders draw back and down. One last time. Inhale up. Exhale, release, shoulders draw back, and nice and easy, they float down. Bring palms together at heart center. Nice and easy. Touch the thumbs into the sternum. Bow the chin towards the fingertips and notice the breath that's been flowing this whole time. And never lose sight of your connection to the breath, for it is the vehicle by which we remember we are enough. Slowly flutter the eyes open. Nice soft gaze, no strain on the eyes. Inhale, raise the chin. And release the breath. Settle. Remember. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
Well, we are continuing with Chapter 8 in The Power of Decision. For those of you who may be joining us for the very first time, we are in our Truth Sunday Masterclass, I've Got the Power, studying The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. And again, we are at the last chapter, so we definitely encourage you to go back. You can go to YouTube and go to the playlist and begin with Chapter 1. We're going to do our best to move through this chapter today. I was saying to PY, we might not finish this chapter. And it being the final chapter, it's probably a good idea to really move through the entire chapter. And where we want to close is to do some exercises. So if we don't finish this chapter this week, we'll continue next week. And then the third Sunday, we'll walk you through some exercises to support you in actually integrating and making some decisions and some choices of how you will now use all of this golden information and wisdom that we have received. Now let's apply it, right? And so we'll share some things there, which is going to be exciting. So let's get into the text. First of all, let me remove some things here so I can see what's going on, because that's always helpful. No, I need that. Okay, beautiful. So we're going to pick up in the section where we left off, and we had read this first paragraph, and that it led us into some wonderful things. I'm going to reread that paragraph, and we'll continue moving forward. Correct mental work is easy. The consciousness that is established in order and has definite goals does not labor with negatives and is not turned aside by unanswerable questions. It knows what it is doing to accomplish what it wants to do. It gives no attention to the many side issues that could divert it from its proper course. It holds its emotions in directed control. They support the main decision and add their power to its process of manifestation. There is no inner conflict. There is an abiding peace in the entire functioning of thought and feeling. The entire consciousness is constructive, creative, and productive.
I want to just point out one thing. He says holds its emotions in direct control. It doesn't mean you don't express emotion. It understands and it directs the pattern of its thinking, okay? So it's not that you should repress or suppress emotion. It's that you know how to manage emotion. Okay?
And this is all related to this idea of not being diverted, right? Because whatever emotion shows up, we can give it so much attention that then it just takes us out, right? The fear of what if I fail, right? Is you're just living in that, and you're not directing that emotion by moving through it, asking other questions, asking love-based questions. I'm reminded in rereading this paragraph now. There's a sermon I heard many years ago when I was a teenager. Keep the main thing the main thing. And this is sort of what is necessary as we're moving toward whatever our decided goal is. And that's why we're not diverted by unanswerable questions. That's why we're not looking at all the many side issues. Right? They support the main decision and add their power to its process of manifestation. And again, so often we're not keeping the main thing, and we're not focusing on that. We start focusing on all of the what ifs, and it's usually the what if I fail type questions.
Or the how.
Yeah,
which
that's
ain't
the
your
other one.
business, no
Yeah,
way.
it ain't your business.
That's God's business. And so it's important to understand, again, we're not suppressing emotion. We're learning how to manage it, or we're using it to tap into what is really going on, those thoughts that are really blocking our ability to focus in on our desired outcome.
In track and field, one of the things professional athletes, they know, but you learn in running track, just the mere looking, turning your head to the left or right to see who's next to you or how close you are, literally slows you down. Right? It literally takes time off. So that's why you have to be focused. That wonderful scripture that we get from one of the letters attributed to Paul, right? Press toward the mark of the prize of the high calling. He was literally, because he was speaking to Greek people who understood the Olympics and had that sense of running. That's what he was talking about, right? Forgetting those things which are behind me, I'm reaching forward for those things which are before me. I press toward the mark, and that mark was like the tape, just like a runner does, right? And so that's what we're talking about. Laborious thinking indicates the need for a decision. Such thinking fatigues the mind and lessens the sharpness of the mental processes. It is thinking with resistance because there is no clear-cut desire behind it. Your own mental brakes have slowed you down, just as the brakes of an automobile slow it down. Laborious thinking can be stopped if you will do some reviewing of your desire, your goal, and your decision. Simplify your thinking down to basics. Contemplate the goal as already accomplished, and you will discover a new wave of fresh thinking sweeping into your consciousness. This is a wonderful tool, and many people have named it many different things. But I use this tool personally. I've used it with others. I think I'm pretty sure we shared it in a sermon. But what you can do is it's sort of talking to your future self, right? Like, I've accomplished this goal. I'm sitting in the finished product, the finished idea, the finished experience. What did I do? Right? And you start to kind of just step through from that vantage point. You will receive ideas and a perspective that you may not have considered. And so this is what he's relating to, right? Contemplate the goal is already accomplished, and you will discover a new wave of fresh thinking sweeping into your consciousness. And so that's one of the things you can do. If you're in the process of creating and you've gotten stuck in some area, right? Well, maybe it's related to creating a business or creating a piece of art or music, and you're stuck. This is a way to get yourself unstuck. In your mind, the goal is accomplished. What things did I do to get here, right?
And I love this idea. What he's really saying, laborious thinking, is worry.
Yep.
Right? Because you're using the mind. The mind is doing what it does. It's thinking. But it's usually thinking around, again, its focus is to the left or to the right, the future in an unsupportive way, the past keeping you in fear. And so laborious thinking will slow you down. Yes, you are using your mind to think, but not in a productive way. Right? And so you're going to think. Choose how you're going to think and how you're going to use this amazing tool of the mind to support what you decided already.
There you go. Right ideas fall into place, and fresh Inspiration reveals itself. Again, you are at ease in your creative process.
Right. Again, another key word, ease. If you up late at night, if you wake up in the middle of the night, if you can't go to sleep, that's probably laborious thinking.
Yep.
Right? It's not supporting you.
Right.
First of all, you need some rest so you can get access to new ideas and fresh insight, right? And so it's important, again, if I'm in this place where I'm not receiving fresh ideas, I realize in truth I could never be stuck because energy is always moving.
Yep.
All I need to do is refocus my attention in a way that supports me.
Yep. Yep. I have spoken it. I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it. I will also do it. Isaiah 46:11. A premise like this one makes for easy mental work. No time or energy is given to trivialities other than those necessary for the accomplishment of the end result. He keeps saying this, and I hope we can hear this, right? I think sometimes we're not aware that many times the things that we're putting our attention on, that of things that we think we need in order to accomplish a result, we actually don't need. Right? And we put so much time and energy into here, what he's calling trivialities, other than those things that are necessary. So here's a new question you can ask yourself. What things are absolutely necessary for me to accomplish this goal? And I want to pull it back even further. Absolutely necessary for me to take this next step.
The next
Right.
logical step.
Whatever that is, wherever you happen to be in the process. Because, you have a 20-step process and you're worried about step 19, but you haven't taken step 2 yet.
Yes.
The only thing you need are the things that are required to take step 2.
Right.
And when you get to step 18, then you will have what you need or know how to get what you need for step 19. But we're always, we fearfully project into the future. Oh no, well, step 19, I need $1 million and I don't have that. But you need $0 for step 2, but you won't move to step 2. And that's what he's talking about when he says no time or energy is given to trivialities other than those that are necessary for the accomplishment of the end result.
I mean, even going back to the runner analogy, even though from our perspective it feels like their feet never touch the ground, they are taking step by step by step by step, right? It's just that they're so good at it, so fast at it. It's so easy to them. They're just moving forward towards the goal.
Right.
But they know that there are steps happening.
Right. Yeah.
They've trained to take each step.
And a specific amount of steps.
And a specific amount of steps. Right?
Right.
This analogy is a gift that keeps on giving, right? Because if you look at that, you're like, oh my God, they just got there in 10 seconds. But they've trained to take a certain amount of steps in a certain way, and they know, they trust, they've done it enough that they just do it.
The person with such a premise has no time for resentment.
Nope.
Most unsuccessful people have many resentments. They have unconsciously built these resentments in order to justify to themselves their lack of success. Their twisted thinking could not produce any really satisfactory situation. They are running down blind alleys of their own unconscious creation. And I love that he says this, right? This is all unconscious, right? This is not a shame or a judgment. No one is consciously choosing
Absolutely.
This. The success-prone person needs all their emotions creatively supporting their decision.
All of their energy.
Right. They cannot afford negative mental, emotional diversions. They must stay on their course of constructive thinking, backed up by a healthy, constructive attitude. Right. So that's interesting because there are a lot of people who are doing the constructive thinking or deliberate thinking or intentional thinking or affirmative thinking, but they actually don't have a healthy, constructive attitude. Their consciousness, the atmosphere of their mind is actually still fearful, is actually still worried. It still actually believes one day the bottom will drop out. Right. It's actually still living in this, but people that look like me don't really get this have these kinds of experience, or it lasts for a while, but then it fades out, right?
Right. Whatever your core beliefs are, they're going to surface again until you replace them with something else.
Yeah. They must stay on their course of constructive thinking, backed up by a healthy, constructive attitude. They make certain that their mind is not weighed down with anything which interferes with their steadfast, correct thinking. And so this is important. This is why we are very conscious about the things that we feed our minds. This is why we're very not in a sense of pushing away or being in resistance, but you just know there's certain things you can't entertain all the time, right? And more specifically, because unfortunately so many do this, I find it interesting, right? Those that are looking for a loving relationship and partnership are sometimes feeding their minds with things that are
Counter.
that are counter to that, right? Or if you're deciding that you want to, even be financially wealthy, but then are being swayed by inflation conversations and these conversations about the economy. Well, you can't have it both ways, right? And so you have to really be clear that you're not weighing down your mind with anything which interferes with your steadfast correct thinking, because all that's happening, the so-called facts of the world, right, are simply, as I love how Abraham always says, that's just how somebody else moved energy. That's all, right? And so you still have the opportunity to move and use energy in, through, and as your life through your steadfast correct thinking, right? And you will have different results, right? This is why even in the midst of certain economic situations, you can still prosper, right? And this is why we've been very deliberate since 2020, and why our masterclass in 2020 was spiritual economics, right? And we've watched so much thriving happen within our community because we chose a different set of facts, right? It chose to live from those facts. To be success prone, you need faith in yourself, faith in other people, and a generally healthy mind. You need to be up to date in your thinking and optimistic about your future. Again, that sounds like, just a simple sentence, but so incredibly important, being up to date in your thinking. And
Right.
we talked about that in the previous chapter, right? And optimistic about your future. He echoes this later in the chapter. It's reminding me now. It's the Einstein quote, and I'm paraphrasing it, but something that each of us as humans have to decide: do you live in a friendly universe or not? Right? Because if life itself is friendly, then it will be kind, right? It will have those attributes of what we consider a friend to be. But if you don't believe that life is friendly, right? And there are ways of thinking that says that life isn't friendly, right? That nature is against us, or nature is something that we have to tame because that would suggest that it's not friendly, right? Then it's really hard to be optimistic about the future. Right? Very, very hard to be optimistic about the future. And so it's important, your up-to-date thinking and your optimism, not Pollyanna pie in the sky, ignoring what's happening, but believing that even those things which are challenging or difficult now can change, right? The pessimist weighs themselves down with their false expectations of disaster. She or he is missing the point of living, and most certainly they are missing the real joy of being alive. They are an excellent illustration of how not to use your mind. As PY just said earlier, they're using their mind, right? They're thinking, we always are, but this is just, as I just said, Abraham, that's how those people moved energy or used energy. So just, that's how I don't want to use my mind, right? I see those results. The mind that is uncluttered with negative emotions is the mind that can think creatively with ease. Knowing that your mind is a phase and function of the infinite mind helps to keep it uncluttered. The infinite has no negative emotions. It has no hidden fears, resentments, or frustrations. Its mood is always creative. I love this, why Ernest Holmes said that God is not a being having moods, and most of us learned about God as someone that was emotional, right? And had I think it's Carlton Pearson that says God has an anger management problem. Like, that's what we learned, that this is who and what God is. This is who and what the infinite is, right? That it has moods and it has fears and resentments, and if you don't act right by it, it's going to get you. All of these things, but that's not who and what God is. Its mood is always creative. Its thinking is always clear. And as you affirm that mind to be your mind, you release its creativity as your creativity, and great things happen. God is in business by means of you.
Right.
And
Take that in.
Yeah. And the business of God is always good and forever expanding.
It's just beautiful to remember that God exists in, through, and as me, in, through, and as you. It's in the business by way of me. It experiences through me and as me.
You know, I'm reminded of the song Agape, from Agape International Spiritual Center, Use Me. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. And that sounds like a radical statement. I don't know that when I first heard that song, that I fully grasped or understood what was being said and articulated. God needs us. Right? God expresses by means of us, right? The business of God. And what is the business of God? It's always good and forever expanding, right? It needs us to shine its light. But we are the hands, the eyes, the ears, the feet, the beings that are being used for God to express. So we have a prayer treatment. Go ahead.
And not against our will.
No.
Right? It gives us the opportunity to use this creative mind that we each have, however we choose. However we choose.
Yeah. And so we have a spiritual mind treatment here. My mind is forever a part of the infinite mind. The infinite mind is never disturbed. It knows no negatives. It has no fears, resentments, or frustrations. Therefore, in my mind now, these cannot exist and do not exist. They have no cause, continuity, or conclusion.
Love that.
Wow, that's deep. The creativity of the infinite mind is the creativity of my mind. The clarity of the infinite mind is the clarity of my mind. God is in business by means of me, and the business of God is always good. Therefore, I think with ease of my accomplished goal. It is being created in my mind right now. I welcome its appearance in my experience. And so this is a wonderful prayer treatment to use if you find yourself being diverted.
Or in that laborious thinking.
Laborious thinking, right. If you find yourself at step 2 thinking about step 19, right? You want to affirm these truths, right? That God is in business by means of me, and the business of God is always good.
That means God is always in the black. God is always prospering.
Yeah.
You know, it is a billionaire by means of you.
Yeah.
Not just in financial wealth, but just that it is.
Right.
The business of God is always good.
Yeah. Yeah. Always good. Always good. They have no cause, continuity,
That's
or
a good one.
conclusion. Right? These things which you may experience, but they're all temporary. Right? No continuity and nor conclusion. It's not the final word.
It's not the final word, and continuity, meaning the past, however it was in the past, doesn't mean it's going to continue in the future.
Right.
There's no continuity.
Right. Yes.
Right?
So you may be in fear, you may be in doubt, you may be in worry, you may be challenged, you may feel like your back is against the wall. You may not know how this thing is going to happen, but that thing has no cause, continuity, or conclusion, which means it's not fixed.
Yep.
It's not final. It means that it's changeable, and by your awareness and affirming of this truth, you're changing it.
Absolutely. This book is filled with so many powerful mind treatments. Just pick one. Right? Pick the one that feels right.
Yeah.
And just keep using it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Directed thinking. Intelligent, causative thinking is thinking that is goal-directed and not impeded by emotional drawbacks. And this is very important, right?
Or your feeling about what happened, emotional. The feeling about the situation that feels like a drawback, right?
I mentioned it last week, and we were watching another episode yesterday of Cesar Millan, Better Humans, Better Dogs.
Yep.
And one of the things, it happens over and over again, they think that their dog, they think that their pet is the problem. The pet is simply responding to the energy of the owner, and the owner generally is not standing as the pack leader. They're living in the past, right? And there's one episode we were watching last night. There was a terrible incident that had happened at the dog park, and the owner, she couldn't let that go. And so going to the dog park, she's talking about and replaying that fear, and literally the dog is feeling that and responding to that, to actually try to protect her because it feels her being in that space.
Right, because they had been doing the work, the mental, emotional, physical work to change the experience for her and the dog. The dog had already adjusted.
Yep.
The dog was in the present. Like, oh, this is how we live now. This is how I'm going to respond to every situation. But because her mind, she hadn't let it go, when they showed up at the place, she assumed the dog was going to respond the same way.
Right.
It was responding to her responding the same way.
Right, right. Our pets don't live in the past. They don't do that thing that humans do, right? And so it was a beautiful way to see that play out through that show. But this is what Barker is talking about, right? Not being impeded by emotional drawbacks. How often do we bring those emotional drawbacks? Many times are the past. Of course, in Miracles teaches so wonderfully on that. I see only the past, right? And so we take this other experience. You go on a date this time, and you're in your mind, you were already thinking about all those other bad dates that you had and all those other unwanted experiences, and hoping that this person doesn't do any of those things,
Or
right?
looking for that person to do those things.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Right. And again, some of this is unconscious, right?
Yeah.
You're unconsciously looking for the same experience you've had in the past. And when it shows up, it's like, oh, see, there it is, which only keeps the cycle of that belief going, right? As opposed to, I'm just going to show up and have a good time.
And this is why we got to get intentional, right? Goal-directed thinking, right? What have I decided? That's what you have to remind yourself. I've decided that I will have a good time. I've decided that I will meet wonderful people, right? I have decided that this experience will be not just different, but name what the difference is. Right? That's very important. Very, very, very important.
Right, and so we don't number or keep a record of the number of dates we've been on. We keep a record of how we are moving towards our desired thinking around the experience of relationship. Right? We check in with ourselves. Oh, look at me showing up and feeling more open. And we note if I'm receiving the experience of openness, right?
Absolutely.
All of that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're not, is this the one?
Right.
We're there experiencing how we want to be in relationship and what we want to receive in relationship.
I believe this to be the normal thinking of humans. All else is abnormal thinking. I cannot believe that the subconscious mind was created to give us troubles. Being born of the infinite, its basic motivation must be that of health, happiness, love, and self-expression. Our usual use of the subconscious is really a misuse of it. It is humanity who has put into the subconscious mind the materials that cause us troubles. Nothing enters our subconscious mind save by our conscious mind. If the confusion is there, we have put it there. If a failure pattern is there, we have put it there. If I say this not to create self-blame, but to create self-understanding.
Yes, and that's important.
Yeah.
Many times when we come to New Thought and we realize we create our realities, we begin to see the patterns, and then we go into self-judgment and self-blame and self-doubt, as opposed to self-understanding.
Right.
Oh, right, there obviously is some thinking, a consistent pattern of thinking around whatever it is, and it keeps showing up. Oh, self-understanding and self-compassion would mean, oh, I realize why. Now I'm deciding to do something different.
Right. Right. And you think about, most of our worldview, it's shaped, 0 to 7, right? And you think about how impressionable a child is, what a child will believe. Most of us believe there was Santa Claus, right? And so we accepted all of that, but then think about all the ways that was reinforced, right? And all the ways that the adults in our lives supported that reinforcement, right? And so that one thing, let's think about all the other realities of life, right? Or so-called realities of life and certain worldviews, right? It was put there, not we necessarily said, oh, I want to think that I'm unworthy, or, oh, I want to think that I'm sinless, or, oh, I want to think that there's not enough, or, I want to think that, life is really scarce, or, oh, I want to think that I can't have certain things because English is not my first language, right? Whatever it may be. But this is important. This is not to create self-blame, but to create self-understanding.
Right. It gives you clarity around all of what's going on.
Yes.
Right? We can't be, A Course in Miracles talks about our fear of looking within. We can't be afraid to look within.
Right.
Because that's where the power is.
Yep.
That's where the ability to change it is.
Yep.
Right? So we can't be afraid of that.
Right.
We just bring ourselves to some self-understanding and then self-compassion
There you go.
and then a new choice.
There you go. Self-blame is quite different from self-understanding. The first is destructive and the second is constructive. All of us can search our minds and find many faults. Unless we do something to erase these, we have only added to them. We have increased our guilt load, and this lessens our capacity for originality. Our
Right.
guilt load needs to be lessened, not expanded. The originality factor in too many people is wrapped in the swaddling clothes of guilt. It remains stifled and inoperative. To perceive a subconscious fault and negate it is one thing. To perceive a subconscious fault and reaffirm it is quite another thing. Using this instruction negates subconscious faults and releases originality.
Right.
And when he's using that term originality, what are we talking about? A Course in Miracles puts it better, I think. I am as God created me. It brings you back to the truth of who you absolutely are. You're not those things that were planted in your subconscious mind, however they got there.
Right. Either
That's
by
not
you or someone else.
Right. And so originality is then bringing you back to that idea of God's business operating in, through, and as you, and that business is always good.
I love it. To perceive a subconscious fault and negate it is one thing. But to perceive it and reaffirm it, yep, that's true, that's me. That's how I do.
Right.
I always do that. I was going to say a bad word. I always mess it up. Right?
Right. And unfortunately, I've seen and experienced folks that awareness has become a badge of honor, right? It's like, oh, well, this is how I am. I had this experience in my childhood, or I had this experience even as an adult, whatever. I had this experience at a previous job, and so now I operate in a certain way because of that. And thinking that that self-awareness is a good thing. That's only part of the step, right? It's that self-awareness. Then we have to remove that thing and get back to originality, who you are in truth, who God created you as in truth.
Absolutely. This is some good stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all feeling it?
Self-understanding is a sure sign of healthy thinking.
Self-understanding, self-compassion.
You realize that you are a sum total of patterns, beliefs, and causes, right? But what's beautiful is patterns, beliefs, and causes are all changeable. But we have to know and understand that reality, that's the nature. Who we become is a result of patterns, beliefs, and causes.
Right. We've talked about this in the past. You know, having the badge of honor that you basically work yourself to death. Talking about it like it is something that's to be rewarded or celebrated, that you worked so many hours beyond human capacity. All those kinds of things. We have an opportunity to become self-aware, develop some self-understanding about why that is there and why we think it's important and why we've continued to believe it, and then do something to change it if we don't like it.
Right, right. And that which we want to keep, we're now consciously choosing it, right? It's no longer something that we passively received, right? Even if my parents instilled in me, oh, you can be anything, you can do anything, you can have anything. At some point, the adult Gregory has to accept, I have to know that to be true and accept that as my chosen reality, right? My decision that I now live from, right?
Absolutely.
That's powerful. The bulk of these are creative and not burdened with past mistakes. They are of the here and now, supported by the creativity of the past. They are today's patterns, beliefs, and causes, right? So this is one of the other pieces, because there's two sides to the coin. Every time that you've had a success or successful outcome, you're creating those patterns, right? And those things will continue. And so your good is a result of patterns, beliefs, and causes. You are at ease mentally with them. They inspire rather than conspire.
Right. It's that thing we talked about in the last God Talk. Well, you had success. Well, what did you do to create that success? And not to think of it in a cursory way, like, oh yeah, I was successful, but to really get in there and understand it, to put your focus of attention on what were the actual steps that I took. Maybe I didn't realize at the time that I was doing something very powerful.
Right.
But now I get to honor not only the success that I have, but the mind that was able to create it. which was my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you strengthen that pattern, that belief.
You
and that
keep
cause.
thinking it, or you
Yeah.
keep repeating what you did before. You know, wash and rinse and repeat.
Right. And eventually it becomes automatic. It becomes habit. Right. It's
Unconscious competence.
Right. Exactly. They deal with apparent impediments without fear or doubt. They back up your mental planning and help execute your orders. They are your co-workers in all that you are doing. They make you feel that you are a harmonious whole. The negative patterns you allow to continue in your subconscious mind form a conspiracy against you. They are out to get you, and often they do. Their ways of operations are intelligent. They are the causes of your many forms of ills. They obstruct the creative process. They may not be able to stop the process, but they can slow it down. They do not want you to be successful, healthy, or happy. The sooner they are self-seen by you and negated, the better. I just want to say this because it's helpful in the writing of it to anthropomorphize
I was going to say the same thing.
But this is also how we get to, you play this out longer, right? This is, people start calling them demons, and the devil is busy, right? And you know, make it into some actual being or entity that has inhabited them. That's not what's going on,
Well,
right?
this ego, my
Right.
ego is out here doing, and you're like, but whose
Right.
ego is it? It's yours.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So this language is helpful because it paints a picture, but please know that it's not an entity and something that's
Outside
literally
of
out
you,
to get you, right?
trying to get you, right?
Exactly.
It is a beautiful way to look at thought, right? To give you the ability to witness how thought works, right? So that you understand how thought works. But please always remember that those are your thoughts,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
under your control now that you're conscious to do with what you will.
Yeah, yeah. There are no impediments to the success of any person save those which have been subconsciously accepted by the person, right? Again, this is important. Subconsciously accepted. It may not be consciously. That they can be located, observed, and negated by you is the great hope of your mental emotional life. Right? And this is a big part of what New Thought is all about. Have no fear of the negative patterns you may uncover in your mind.
Yes.
They are ready to be known and dismissed. If you've been in class with us, one thing we say all the time, the thing that is surfacing, it's surfacing because there's enough love here to heal it.
Absolutely.
Like it's coming up because it's ready to be released.
It's better to be released.
Because it don't belong to you.
It ain't trying to torture you or prove that you haven't learned anything in New Thought.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just, okay, there's enough love, enough self-understanding here to change it,
Yes.
to heal it,
Yes.
to release it.
Yes. They are ready to be known and dismissed. The only fight they have in themselves is the fear you give to them. Their continuity in you needs your fears and your worried thought. If they do not receive such nourishment, they wither into minor importance. It's absolutely true.
Right. I mean, think about your own life. Was there ever a thought that you had that once you either consciously or unconsciously made a decision it no longer was valid, it just withered away? You don't even think that way no more. You can't even imagine thinking that way or doing whatever it was you used to do, right? Or you can even look at the past and laugh at it, be like, oh, Lord, look at how I used to act, right?
A strong demand on your part that they vacate your mind will cause their impotence. They become inactivated, and they will stay inactive for the rest of your life unless you unconsciously reactivate them. This we all tend to do when we are in a depressed state. We think backwards, right? And again, we're not talking depressed as clinically depressed, but one of the other things that's important, and we mentioned it last week, from the vantage point of Barker writing this, again, we know more about the brain and neuroplasticity. We know more now about the brain and the wiring and firing and the synapses. And so literally this is true on a physical level, what's happening in your brain, right? That they literally, those connections in your brain, those neural pathways actually, they don't just deactivate, they actually disconnect, right? And ultimately disappear. But at the same time, you create new connections, new neural networks around a new pattern, a new cause, a new belief, and you strengthen them. And at the same time, because of neuroplasticity, you can recreate those old patterns again, right? And so what he's talking about here, we know is absolutely true beyond the philosophical.
And it's not talking about this forceful thinking in the mind, trying to force your mind to do things. There are so many easy ways to implant new thoughts in the mind, right? And so when an old thought, you become aware of it, you're not fighting with it.
Right. Right.
Oh, this thought. You're just like, oh, thought. What do I want to think now?
Directed thinking can either be negative or positive. Consistent worry is directed thinking. A constant fear of the future is directed thinking. Frustrated thinking is certainly directed thinking. Such thinking must be avoided at all costs, and the only cost there is to do this is redirection of your attention to a positive goal.
Right. So the way to do it, the only way to do it is to redirect.
The person who cannot stop worrying is the person who wants to worry, consciously or unconsciously.
Right. You get used to that feeling. Your body gets used to being in a state of worry. I was talking to a colleague, one of my mentors, about worry, and I realized that life was so good, it felt foreign. And what felt right was to worry that I wasn't worried. Right? That feeling of worry had been so in my body that when it wasn't there, something seemed to be wrong. In fact, I was just activating worry about not being worried.
They are getting some hidden or obvious benefit from it. They may be seeking sympathy and attention. You do not give sympathy to a success person. You give them praise. They have nothing in their mental makeup to warrant sympathy. The success person is a self-made person. Y'all know I have, right, the idea of self-made. I know what he means here in terms of the consciousness.
That the individual has to do it, right?
Right, but no person is successful by themselves. The failure person is also a self-made person. Both have made the materials they have placed in their subconscious minds to get them to the place where they are. And so that's what he's saying, right? That's the self-made part, right? Both have used the materials they have placed in their subconscious mind to get to the place where they are. But again, the idea of self-made, and we hear this over and over and over again. My mind is going, recently, not too long ago, Rihanna became a billionaire, right? First self-made billionaire, I don't know, black female, her age, all these wonderful categories. But I'm like, well, if nobody bought Fenty products and nobody bought her music, like, she can't make herself, right? People had to, there's a whole host of things that had to happen.
A whole host of teams for products development and launch and marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's an interesting title that we've given successful people.
Right. But we affirm, and we absolutely agree, that this idea that, the materials they have placed in their subconscious minds support them, support all of us into getting where we are, whether it's as a failure-prone person or a success-prone person, right? One is not lucky and the other unlucky. Neither one can state that their accomplishments are the result of heredity or environment. We're going to unpack this. There are as many failures among the rich as there are among the poor. Success or failure cannot be explained by anything other than the use and misuse of mental processes. The subconscious mind produces what we place in it. It is a creative process and is a law of action. Okay, so as we have stated in other times, we recognize that Raymond Charles Barker is a white male living in the United States of America. And of course, he's writing this from the vantage point of 1968. Right, and so of course there was nothing hindering him at all, and in his world and in his mind, he could not conceive of any hindrances. And it is true, right, that where's the statement? There are as many failures among the rich as there are among the poor, and that is true. But context is important because in the context, let's say in the context of white folks and success, and it's like, oh, well, I know, people, white rich people that have succeeded and poor white people that haven't. It's only about thinking and consciousness, right? Only about their consciousness and only about their thinking. But it was within a different arena, right? There wasn't the existence of racism and privilege and all of those other things that have to be overcome. And so, yes, within that one finite playing field, you can say that, but it doesn't take into account all of these other things. So when he talks about it's not the result of heredity or environment, but the truth is we understand how privilege works, how it has worked. We understand the real leaps and bounds when you start to look at things like redlining and you start to look at the disparities between black wealth and white wealth, right? We understand that there's two different we're just have been playing in two different arenas. And so that has to be acknowledged. And within that context, we also can see something profound, and why I love to look at how black people have succeeded in the midst of this racist society. Every successful black person had to eventually adopt a consciousness about themselves.
Absolutely.
That was beyond what the world or society had fed into their subconscious mind. Right? And so that's what proves to me that I know that this process actually works, that it's a creative process, that it's a law of action. And I recognize, I can see, I can look at some of my brothers and sisters that may still, for a host of reasons, may still believe that they're unworthy, may still believe that they're not valuable. We could choose any other community. We could look at women, right, and understand how there are still some women that feel that they should be less than or shouldn't make as much as a man, or these kind of strange thoughts, right? But we recognize the conditioning that would create them to think that way.
And we recognize the impact of the environment globally.
Yes.
That would make it harder for them to move in this way. Now, we're not saying that any of this at the ultimate level of truth is true.
Yes.
We're saying that us in human form can put in place things that would prevent some from having what we have. And in truth, it's because of our lack of understanding, our disbelief in prosperity, that would create systems and policies to prevent people from achieving.
Yeah.
Because the good is supposed to get in. We in human form put blocks in place.
Right. Right.
We legislate things. However, at the highest level, the good is supposed to get in.
Yep.
And it still does.
Yep. Yep. It is axiomatic that we are the subconscious mind in action. It determines every phase of our lives. It determines our health, our relationships with others, our financial positions, and our own sense of worthiness and well-being. There is no sense in blaming it for our faults, nor in praising it for our virtues. Both faults and virtues are created by our own minds in accordance with the decisions we have made regarding our own lives. Given creative direction, the subconscious mind will respond to our decisions and do its normal work and create what we want. Given non-creative directions, it again does its normal work and creates troubles for us. Its impersonality cannot be overemphasized. And again, this reminds me, again, given non-creative directions, this is what's happening in society. You're born gay, and there are all of these non-creative directions in the world, right, that are telling you that you're bad, that you're wrong, that you're going to hell, that God hates you, that God has created a disease specifically to punish you, right? And so the subconscious mind does its work and will attract people and places and experiences that line up with that non-creative direction. You're born as a black person in this world, and you're told that you have to fight harder. You're told that just by virtue of your existence, there's something wrong with you, or there are those that won't like you, or there are doors that won't be open to you. And so this is why we celebrate Pride, right? This is why Pride exists. This is why we have to celebrate Black History Month, and why Black Pride is so important, and why that all of the ways in which we seek to affirm ourselves and support and love ourselves, why it's important for women to celebrate and affirm and uplift themselves, right? Because what you're doing is implanting in your subconscious mind creative direction, right? And the world and life will respond to that creative direction. That's why we have to do all of those things, right? That's why it matters that we write children's books for little children that affirm the texture of their hair, right? That is why we have to do all of these things, because that's creative direction that's supporting the world that we actually want to see. But unfortunately, unconsciously, we're given so many non-creative directions.
Right, and we're unpacking all of this so that you have a clear understanding of self and the environment in which you currently may exist, but not as a limitation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So please understand that. We like to take time to unpack things so that you put it in context of your life, your experience, your lived experience. And then we also know the reality above it all.
Successful people like what they are doing. They actually love what they are doing. Creative ideas unfold rapidly in this mental atmosphere of love and reveal their full potentials. This love invokes their inner enthusiasm. It is a source of mental vitality. The romanticists say that love rules the world, but it does not. Ideas rule the world. When ideas are positive and given freedom to unfold in a mind that loves what it is doing, then they do rule the world of such an individual. Such directed thinking cannot be defeated by person, place, or situation. It always is victorious and successful. I love that he's talking about this in the context of love. And what's interesting here when he's saying this idea that when ideas are positive and given freedom to unfold in the mind that loves what it is doing, they do rule the world. And so when we hear, what the world needs now is love, sweet love, or the Beatles, all you need is love, true statements, but it actually has to emanate from with us. And my love connects with her love, and her love connects with your love, and your love connects with their love, and their, right? And so it's out of that then we create a consciousness of love, that and an environment of love, which then attracts loving ideas and loving thoughts and loving laws and loving ways to treat people and loving ways to show up in the world, right? And loving thoughts about housing and loving thoughts about justice and loving thoughts about how the economy can work, right? But it actually has to be each and every one of us tapping into that.
And I love the idea that we're tapping into this because romanticism is around the emotion of what we feel when love is expressed.
Right.
What we're talking about at the highest level is the understanding that love is synonymous with union, with the creative mind, the infinite intelligence that is always thinking in a loving way. And so when we clear out all the ways in which we've been thinking unloving thoughts about ourselves or another person, this love, this union, this connection to divine mind can flow freely. And so the ideas, the inspiration you receive is love because it comes from the source of love. You might have to come back to this section and replay it, but it's so important when he's talking about romanticism. That's the emotional. I love to hear. I hear Reverend Michael, sentimentality, the emotional sentimentality of love. It's bigger than that. That's one expression of this union and connection that is love.
Yep. I think this will be our last section today if we get through it. Great ideas need you. Ideas need you. They will be born by means of someone, somewhere, so it might just as well be you. The universe needs these new ideas to maintain its evolution. Life in you needs these ideas in order to have full self-expression. You need these ideas in order to feel fulfilled. They are already in your consciousness. Do some contemplative thinking and give your intuition a chance to tell you something. Rest assured that what it will tell you will be good. It will be an idea that will enrich you in some way. It will make you a greater person. It will probably solve any important problem you may have at the moment. If the idea is a great one, it may startle you. You may feel inadequate to grasp it and give it embodiment. That idea would not have come into your mind if you were not the right person in the right place at the right time for it to be born. So tell yourself that after you're startled. Your present state of consciousness has attracted that idea. It needs that idea right now in order to stay fresh and creative. It is probably time that you had a great new idea. You need the idea as much as the idea needs you. Do not turn it aside. Examine it. Ponder it. Think of all creative ways in which you can make it happen. Again, I love this because this is the opposite of what so many of us do. And I love that he talks about startle you. There's a line of thinking that we've heard many times that, a great idea, if it doesn't cause fear a little bit that it's not big enough, right? And that's never sat well with
Me neither.
right? But it is true that it may startle you. Why? Because you may think you're not big enough, right? You may think, who am I, right? We find this so often in the scriptures, right? Where Moses, he was like, who am I to lead these people? And John the Baptist, and speaking to his cousin Jesus, felt this sense of unworthiness. Who am I, right? So we recognize that when there's a great calling, a great idea, a great thing that is come into your consciousness, you may be startled, and right, you may feel like, wait, I don't know. Inadequate is the word he used, right? To grasp it or to give it embodiment.
Right.
But the truth is, it would not have come to your mind if you were not the right person at the right place at the right time for it to be born. So do not turn it aside. Examine, ponder, and ponder from the place of all the creative ways in which it can happen.
Right. And startle is not a bad thing in that it's, have you ever tried to get a baby's attention when they're crying and you might shake a rattle and the baby turns in that direction and they stop crying, right? You squeeze a toy and whatever it is, it shakes their focus.
Right.
And it brings their focus to the present moment, to what the present realities are, and they usually calm down, right? Same idea. An idea enters your mind not to make you more fearful, but to change your focus, because obviously you could have been somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right? And so when I get an idea that seems to come out of nowhere to do or be or something else, I don't take it as I can't handle it. Because what's happening in that moment is this brilliant idea, this God-inspired idea is coming up against resistance to being different, to being new. And that can create fear because you're separate from, wait, this is who I was, but this is telling me to be somebody else. That separation can create some fear. But we don't give it any credence. We just realize, oh, something new came into my awareness. And I entertain it. And the more I entertain that, the more excited by it I become. Right? This whole idea of anxiety or fear is just not taking the breath.
Right.
What is that?
Right.
I breathe into it and I say yes.
We unconsciously often reject startling ideas. They seem too big for us. Their acceptance would make too many changes in our lives. This is deep. Or we really do not want to do the work which they entail. For these and many other reasons, we say no to them, which is your absolute right.
Absolute right.
Yeah.
Please, you don't have to accept any idea that comes to you.
Right. To accept them is to give ourselves mental health. They will stir us up. They will disintegrate our complacency. They will lead us in new directions. They will bring with them new thoughts, new things, new people, and new situations. This is exactly what we need all the time. We need to be mentally jolted by a new idea. It is, and I don't even want to read this statement because this is incredibly problematic. But again, in 1968, this was not considered problematic, right?
Right. The terminology.
I'm just not even going to read the sentence because I find it incredibly unsettling. Right, when we understand all the ways that shock therapy has been used and misused.
We need our
attention
redirected.
Right.
Okay, so let's not even go into what this is talking about.
It just wakes you up.
It just wakes you up.
It wakes you up. It's spark. It's a mental spark. Right.
Or takes you out of your whatever pattern of thinking.
Yeah.
It just disrupts the old pattern of thinking. How about that?
The unconscious resistance to change, which many people have, is not an indication of mental health. Again, when he uses mental health, he's not using this as a clinical term. Really, it's just clarity of mind. Routines ensnare us too easily without our realizing it. To be alert and receptive to a new idea is indicative of a success-producing mind. Ideals without ideas have no virtue. The complacent mind may have lofty ideals, but it remains a non-productive mind. Ideals are a great incentive only when the ideas that accompany them are put to practical uses. Then complacency departs and correct mental activity begins. It has always interested me that unhappy people have no real curiosity about themselves.
And I'll say have an unhealthy curiosity about themselves because if we understand depression, there's a pattern of thinking associated with some types of depression. That means you've been thinking some things about yourself that are unhealthy or not beneficial. And so you've been thinking a lot, so much to the point where you have become depressed about what you've discovered or about yourself as opposed to the thoughts that you're experiencing. So we want to make sure that we understand everyone is thinking. It's just, is the thinking that you're engaging in beneficial?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So please, if you've been depressed or whatever, just get some help. Realize that it doesn't mean that you're less than anyone else, but that the pattern of your thinking isn't supporting you right now.
Yeah. The full attention of their minds is on the supposed cause of their trouble. I use the word supposed because a psychological study of their anguish usually uncovers a cause different from the one they have been announcing. When I have a problem of any kind, I am curious as to the subconscious causes of it in me. Long ago, I gave up blaming external events and people for my troubles. I know this science of mine too well to ever again do that. I begin reviewing all emotional events of the past several months, for here I will find the cause of my problem. At times I can perceive my answer right away. Other times it may take a week or more of occasional reviewing, but every time I do, eventually locate the emotional cause of my trouble in my subconscious mind, and then I clear it. Most self-curiosity is negative, therefore it is avoided as much as possible. When I review emotional experiences to find the causes of my troubles, I do not consider this process a negative one, for I am seeking that which, if found and negated, will give me a cure. I consider it a technique of healing. I am seeking a negative to destroy it, not wallow in it, and thereby increase its effectiveness. To me, this is a healthy use of curiosity. Something needs to be uprooted in my subconscious, and I find it and make certain that it functions no more. And I love, this section as he's talking about it. This is, again, this idea of self-blame versus self-understanding. Right? And so this type of curiosity that comes out of self-understanding is also an understanding of how the principles work, right? And understand, even as he says here, most of the people are it's supposed thinking in terms of what they think the cause of the problem is. And I always quote and love, I quote it to myself and use it in my own self-reflection. I am never upset for the reason I think. Right? And so when I'm upset, when I'm frustrated, when I'm pissed off, when something doesn't feel right, I have to tap into, okay, Greg, what's really going on, right? Because I understand the law, I understand the principle, right? I'm remembering one time, I shared this story years ago, but I remember one time I had jury duty. I had jury duty for a month, and we saw a bunch of cases. We were working on one long case, and we heard a bunch of smaller cases. And I remember feeling awful. One particular day coming home after a set of cases, and I didn't know why, right? Because unfortunately, one of the cases that we were dealing with, there were a couple brothers involved, and I hated to, the facts that were laid out to us, it was clear, why they were being charged, but I recognized ultimately what was happening was, even though there were the facts of, okay, well, he did this thing, so he has to serve this time. But I don't believe that he's what he's done, right? I know, and I know the truth of God, that no person is the worst thing that they've ever done. And so I was feeling this disconnect between the fact of my role as a juror and what I was sworn to do with the spiritual truth of who and whose they are. Right. And so, that's what was going on within me. And I had to, tap into what that was and use these spiritual truths and use these ideas to understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and then come back to this reality of and remembering what is absolutely true about these brothers. Right. So that I'm not seeing them as simply criminals. Right. They simply committed some act, but I know that they are not what they've done. But that's what the justice system, as it relates right now, that's what it does, right? It's like you are what you've done. So this is beautiful. I'm looking at the time. We may have to. This might be a place to pause, and so that we can pick up. But you have something.
It's a beautiful reality to know that I am not what I have done. And many times we equate the mistakes or choices that we made, we make that mean something about us. And so statements like, I'm never upset for the reason I think, are important and powerful. And so we use them. Here's the thing. We don't use them against ourselves.
There you go.
Right? We don't use them to spiritual bypass and not feel anything because I'm so spiritual and so evolved that I shouldn't be, I don't feel any negative emotion. We don't use them to gaslight ourselves or spiritually gaslight others.
Yep. Talk about
We're
it.
using these tools, these teachings, these texts, whatever they are, so that we gain some self-understanding and compassion. Basically, we find out why we feel what we feel or think at the deepest level, and then we can let it go or decide to replace it with something else, right? So please don't take these texts, these teachings, to gaslight yourself or someone else.
Right. Right.
You're using them for self-understanding to create the life that you want now, right? So important to understand that.
Yeah. So very important. And as he writes, right, I consider it a technique of healing, and because that's what it did. I was looking for relief.
Right.
Right. My presence of mind and awareness was I'm present and aware of this emotion. Right. And I don't judge myself for this emotion, but it also doesn't feel good. And so I need to know what the source of it is, so that I can uncover it and release it and move back to baseline. Right. So that then, because I also recognize that as long as I'm in that space, right, then I might bring that space home, and then I'm talking to Yolanda any kind of way that had nothing to do with her, but it's because I'm in that emotional space, right? I recognize that I need, as a success-prone person, I need to be successful in all areas of my life. So I don't want to bring that home, right? I don't want that to bleed into any other activities.
Absolutely.
That's going on, right? And most importantly, I don't want it bleeding into my decided goals.
Right.
I got things that I'm accomplishing. I got things that I'm creating. I got things that I'm building, and I recognize that if I'm living in that space, that's going to color my creation in some way.
Absolutely. And you also remember that when you're in this space, again, it's okay, but don't make any decisions from that space.
Lord, no. Please.
Lord, don't even pick up the phone.
Right.
Don't answer a text
Right.
or an email. Just don't. Take the breath, right? The better you get at this self-awareness and this self-understanding, the quicker it'll be for you to move through it like he moved through it before he got home, right?
Right.
But it may take a minute to get into the habit of tapping in this way and picking the correct tool to move through it as quickly as you can.
Yeah. And some things take time, as he talked about. He says it in his own experience, but it's true. There's certain things, certain triggers. It's going to take me days, if not weeks, or more to move through. That's also okay, because going back to the track analogy, but you know where you're going, right? You know that, okay, I'm moving through this process and to move towards healing, right? I don't have to have all the answers right now, but I know that God is the answer, and the answer is right here, right now, and I am experiencing the answer.
Right. You can use that mind treatment that we used today,
Yes.
that we shared today,
Yeah.
to help you start to refocus, right? And to come back to center,
Yeah.
right? We love teaching this text and all that we get the opportunity to share with you around these kinds of new thought principles. It's so much fun for us.
Yeah.
We develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the material. And so it's just an honor and a privilege to serve life in this way.
Yeah.
And we hope that you're enjoying this text as much as we are and that you're getting out of it. I won't say hope, I'll say trust.
Yes.
That you are getting as much out of it as we are.
Absolutely. And so we are going to continue with this chapter
Yes.
because it's the final chapter, and I think it's important because he has a wonderful summation at the end of this chapter. I want to get through all of that. So we're gonna pick up where we left off today, next week, and then the following week on the third Sunday we'll take you through some exercises to integrate this material and to be deliberate and decisive about who and what you shall be, do, or have. As a reminder, if you have class questions about this chapter, you can send us an email to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org, and we will incorporate that next week. Also, there are the resource links. You see the URL there, or you can use the QR code. Finally, it's time for giving, and so you've seen the information throughout the stream. It's very easy to give to CSC. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, or you can text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. What's most important is that you give what feels good.
Yes.
You give without any shame, without any blame, without any guilt, without any sense of obligation, without any fear, without any robbing Peter to pay Paul, without any shoulds. Where giving doesn't happen lawfully. Prosperous giving doesn't happen from that space. And so what we recognize that it's important that we find our joy number, that we give in joy, that we give as joy, that we give from joy. And that's where we experience the real power and blessing of giving. It's not magic, right? It's principle. Right? It's law. And so we want to work with the law, right? Not against it. And so when we give from this place, when we give our joy number, when we give consistently and deliberately from that place, knowing that it's just like breathing out so we can breathe in, and knowing that our needs are supplied, then we can affirm this absolute truth. All the money that I use returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. To that we say amen.
Amen.
Ashe. And so it
And so it is.
We love you all. We pray that you continue to be well and have an awesome week. We pray and know that you will thrive in beautiful and powerful ways, that you will continue to live victoriously in your life. We love each and every one of you, and we look forward to connecting on Wednesday on the prayer call. And if we don't connect on Wednesday, we will all be back here together as one family on Sunday as we continue with I've Got the Power.
Yes, I've got the power.
Yes,
and
yes.
you are enough.
Yes, yes. So y'all be good. Be good to yourselves so you can be good to others. And we will see you next week. All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.